Oh, hello, it's you again. Welcome back to the Faculty of Archaeology here in Leiden. Today, in our vlog, we're going to learn about the Kingdom of Aksum. So join me. I'm here with my good friend Sam Botan, and so Sam, I haven't really heard much and I don't know much about the Kingdom of Aksum. Would you mind explaining to me and the viewers out there, what is Aksum? What was the Kingdom of Aksum?
Yeah, sure, of course. So Aksum is a city in Ethiopia and used to be the capital of a vast kingdom stretching from Eritrea to Ethiopia all the way to Djibouti. And we're talking about the period roughly from 100 BC all the way to 800 AD. So that's a kingdom that lasted almost for 1,000 years and was one of the big players when it comes especially to commerce around the Red Sea, the Horn of Africa, all the way to the Indian Ocean.
So, I mean, from 100 BC up until 800 AD, almost 1,000 years of history there, a large kingdom. I'm surprised I haven't heard more about this before. Would you mind explaining why we don't hear too much about Aksum in the textbooks and in classes?
So the problem, and that's actually a problem not only for Aksum, but let's say the archaeology of Africa in general, is because of the colonial period actually. We're talking about the 18th and 19th century, the time of colonial powers. So if you would give the local population a history, a culture, something that they can reflect upon, and actually a much older culture and civilization than most European civilizations, that would create an issue for the colonial power simply because you would give the people an identity. No research, how should I say, proper archaeological discussion, all the way probably till the 1950s when decolonization started.
I see. Yeah. Wow, it's pretty interesting how the colonial discourse played such a huge role in this. Would you maybe have a real example to show us where we can see this sort of colonial impact on the archaeology of Aksum?
Sure, definitely. Definitely.
Okay. Right. So, come on inside. Sam's going to show us a couple cool images about the colonial past of the Aksum Kingdom. So,
Hi, Alex. Hi, viewers. So, you asked for an example. So, I have here a picture from the 1930s. And on this picture, what we can see is over here you have the now famous Aksum obelisk. These are the Italian excavators, and this is a German truck. So in the 1930s, so we're talking about the time of Mussolini, and the reason this obelisk was being shipped from Ethiopia to Italy was because Mussolini wanted to imitate August, where in the Roman times, when Augustus conquered Egypt, a large amount of obelisks were transported to Rome as, well, you could actually say that they were spoils of war, and the same thing Mussolini actually tried to mimic. So what happened was, after the war, when the Italians were losing the war, the Germans decided to bring a lot of the artifacts, not the obelisk though, that was a little bit too big to move at that moment, to München in Germany, and the documentation as well from the various excavations done by the Italians. After München got liberated by the Americans decided to bring back the artifacts first to Italy and then, hopefully, that was the plan, to Ethiopia, but they took the documentation to Washington. So that creates the interesting situation where you have East African objects now in the museum in Torino in Italy. However, the documentation is now via München in Washington.
What happened to this obelisk though? Like, where is this now?
Well, good question. The obelisk until roughly 2002 was still in Italy, even though when the Allies defeated the Germans and Italians, a peace treaty was signed between Ethiopia and Italy in 1946, and it specifically mentioned the obelisk, that it should be returned to Ethiopia within 8 months. And it only got returned in 2002.
So Sam, from what you've told me, it seems like the colonial impact on Ethiopia and the Aksum kingdom severely shaped the way that we're able to research it today.
Oh yes, definitely. I mean, if you consider the fact that the British actually controlled not only Egypt, but all the way down the Horn of Africa, so our knowledge is extremely limited these days. To give you an example, we have quite a vast knowledge about Egypt. There are thousands and thousands of books written about Egypt, but we only have a handful of books written about the archaeology in the Horn of Africa. So there is actually research going on these days, but they are extremely focused on the very local history, or either they just focus on one specific site and explore the connections of that site with the region, but that's it actually.
Okay, but now I've heard, Sam, that your PhD will be on putting Aksum in a much wider context and fully understanding all the connections related to it.
Correct.
Could you tell us more about your PhD and what you hope to achieve with it?
Well, I can not only tell you more about it, but I can actually show you some of the material that I'll be working with.
Okay.
Shall we head to the lab?
Well, Sam, actually, I know a quicker way there.
Oh, what did you do, Alex?
It never feels good.
Oh, next time, shall we just walk?
Yeah, maybe. So, Sam, tell me about your PhD. Tell me about what you hope to achieve with it and what your aims are with this.
Well, so I'll be looking at different sites actually. So not only just Aksum, but also sites in other parts of Ethiopia, in Somaliland, Oman, all the way to India, and trying to actually, by looking at the pottery, the Aksumite pottery, trying to actually find out how these vessels were transported, to which regions were they transported, which specific types of vessels were transported, and actually reconstructing the ancient trade networks of Aksum by the pottery. And the pottery is actually just a tool that I'll be using for the wider synthesis of my topic. I'll be also actually exploring topics like globalization and network theory. So, and to give you an example, when I'm talking about Aksumite pottery, this is possible, most likely, Aksumite pot that we have here in Leiden, actually, from an excavation back in the 60s and 70s, conducted in Palmyra.
Wow. Okay. Well, Sam, it sounds absolutely fascinating, and it sounds like you have a lot of interesting material to work with. Now, one thing I wanted to get your feedback or your opinion on is the topic of decolonization in archaeology. That's been quite a hot topic these days, especially here in Europe and, well, all over universities. Could could you tell us how your research would be contributing to decolonizing archaeology, or how you feel about that sort of direction?
Yeah, sure. I mean, my opinion is that the way to handle such a heavy topic is by doing proper research. And with proper research, I actually mean that, for example, in my PhD, I'll be using archaeological data, archaeological facts, to actually explore such topics. We're working from the bottom up. And especially in my research, I'll be looking at data from different regions of the world. And by doing that, I'm convinced that the results will help us, especially in educating not only the local people, but let's say the global community, about what actually happened in Aksum and the Horn of Africa. And I would say by educating ourselves from the bottom up, we can actually have a better future. At the same time, be more critical about our own past.
Okay, I couldn't agree more, Sam. Well, Sam, it sounds like you have a very interesting road ahead of you. I wish you all the best with this PhD. You are going to do some great work with it. Thank you so much for coming here and talking to us about the Kingdom of Aksum. Well, guys, that was it from us today. I hope you guys learned something. I certainly did. You can always follow us on Instagram, where we're Archaeologists Connected, or you could check out our website, archaeologistsconnected.org. Yeah, keep following us. We'll have some more videos coming up, and well, we'll see you around. Oh, boss, what are you doing here?
Easy. Now, when you have a PhD, you can teleport and don't feel anything. You'll find out maybe at some point.
Later, boss. Well.